The Hall of Celestial Accord was a spectacle beyond human imagination, a structure the size of a small moon, suspended in the void like a jewel of crystalline architecture. The ceiling rippled with shifting constellations, artificial stars flickering in a symphony of color. The air itself carried weight, buzzing with the low hum of alien voices, telepathic murmurs, and biological clicks forming a chorus of ancient authority. And in the middle of it all, Earth stood alone. Captain Elias Vance resisted the urge to adjust. His collar. The ceremonial uniform was stiff, too formal for his taste, but the real discomfort came from the sheer size of the assembly. Hundreds of alien delegates surrounded them, seated in their designated hovering platforms. Some were humanoid, but most weren't. Some barely registered as physical beings existing as sentient energy confined within containment fields. Others were massive, armored forms exuding raw power. Elias had been in war zones before. He'd seen orbital bombardments turn cities into molten ruin, but standing here in this hall was the first time he ever truly felt small. A gelatinous creature pulsed, its translucent body flashing with bioluminescent mirth. The primates wished to compete? It undulated in amusement. How quaint. Laughter rippled through the chamber, some alien voices high-pitched and shrieking, others deep enough to vibrate through bone. A Zilthari syndicate envoy, its serpentine body coiling into itself, observed the humans with glowing yellow eyes. Its bioluminescence pulsed in calculated hypnotic waves. This must be a misunderstanding, it hissed smoothly. Humans, your species is young. You lack the strength of the Ultravax, the intellect of the Vorkari, the psionic reach of the Syndicate. Why would you waste your first appearance in the Council on something so unwinnable? Elias let the words hang. His training taught him never to rush a confrontation. Let the enemy talk, let them assume. Let them think they were already winning. Finally, he smirked. Because we can. A few aliens stirred, their equivalent of an eyebrow raised. Others scoffed. Mercer chuckled beside him. They don't get it yet. Dante Mercer had the resting stance of a predator, feet light, hands in his pockets, head tilted, as if listening to something only he could hear. His bodysuit was form-fitting, armored in ways that didn't look armored. Most of these species relied on biological supremacy, psionics, or cybernetic augmentation. Mercer, he relied on something they didn't even think to train against: skill. A towering Ultravax warlord, built like a walking tank, stepped forward. His obsidian exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial starlight. I will enjoy breaking your fragile bones. Elias didn't blink. You'll have to catch us first. The Arbiter materialized in a pulse of white energy. It had no face, no limbs, only a shifting form of compressed gravity. Its voice wasn't heard so much as felt, reverberating in every mind. The Council recognizes humanity's request to compete. The laughter died instantly. The trials commence at dawn. And just like that, the game had begun. The briefing room aboard the station was barely larger than a cargo hold, but Elias had spent time in worse. The overhead lighting flickered slightly, casting an intermittent glow over the holographic display flickering above the table. A three-dimensional simulation of the proving grounds rotated in the air, a chaotic, unpredictable battlefield. Terrain shifted at random. Gravity pockets fluctuated. Biomes changed in real time, creating an evolving death trap designed to test the best of the best. Layla Ocampo was already pacing, her dark curls bouncing with every frustrated step. We're boned. Elias smirked. Confidence, Ocampo, I love it. Layla shot him a look and swiped at the projection. Look at these past competitors. She pointed to various data streams. The Ultravax, walking battle tanks, the Vorkari, they calculate probabilities down to the millisecond. The Zilthari, they don't even need to fight, they can literally convince us to surrender with psionics. Mercer leaned back against the wall, rolling a small blade between his fingers. Well, I haven't killed a telepath before, should be interesting. Tariq Basara chuckled, rubbing his beard. Let's avoid murder, shall we? Elias exhaled slowly. This isn't about strength. If it were, the Ultravax would win every year. It's about survival, and nobody survives like us. Tariq leaned forward, intrigued. Because we adapt. Elias nodded. Exactly. He gestured to the display. They rely on predictable strengths, brute force, advanced tech, psychic manipulation. But us? We're chaotic. We improvise. We change the rules. Layla crossed her arms. So, in summary, we can't win a fair fight, so we don't fight fair? Mercer grinned. Now you're getting it. The proving grounds were a living nightmare, a shifting landscape of gravitational anomalies, jagged terrain, and biomechanical horrors awaited them. Competitors from across the galaxy stood ready, their sheer presence enough to make the air feel heavy. A holographic countdown pulsed above them. Mercer rolled his shoulders, flexing his fingers. I don't like countdowns. Makes things too obvious. Elias smirked. You prefer the element of surprise? Always. A metallic clang echoed through the arena. A massive gate trembled, gears grinding as it slowly opened. And from the darkness beyond, they emerged. Biomechanical monstrosities, their armor-plated bodies bristling with weapons, surged forward, eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Layla let out a sharp breath. Oh, fantastic, Tariq muttered. The council wants a spectacle. Elias cracked his neck. Then let's give them one. Mercer exhaled, his movements shifting, lower, looser, fluid. His fingers twitched slightly, his pupils dilating. He wasn't standing still anymore. He was vanishing. He grinned. Time to show them what a human ninja can do. The creatures charged. Elias barked, "Move!" And humanity ran straight into legend. They were massive, chitinous creatures engineered for war, their carapaces gleaming with an unnatural sheen. Each had 6 thick limbs, ending in razor-sharp claws that dug into the shifting ground. Their elongated heads bore glowing, predatory eyes, and their exposed maws opened, revealing row upon row of needle-like teeth. And there were dozens of them. Across the vast, evolving battlefield, the other competitors were already moving. The Ultravax warriors, all brute strength and sheer mass, charged forward like living wrecking balls, meeting the beasts head-on. The Vorkari strategists, intelligent, calculating, stayed back, assessing. Meanwhile, the Zilthari psionics raised, their shimmering arms trying to turn the creatures against each other. And then there were the humans. Elias didn't hesitate. Ocampo, move! Layla had been frozen for half a second, staring at the creatures with scientific horror, but Elias's bark snapped her out of it. She spun, darting left just as one of the monsters lunged where she had been standing. The high impact sent dust and shattered stone flying. Mercer, talk to me, Elias shouted, but Mercer was already gone. The creatures roared, charging. Elias yanked Layla behind a cluster of jagged, shifting rock formations, while Tariq ducked behind, the ruins of what looked like an ancient metallic structure. Jesus, Layla gasped. This isn't an arena. It's a meat grinder. Tariq exhaled slowly, adjusting his stance. They're testing instincts, not just strength, but reaction time, strategy. Who panics first? Elias peered past the rock, assessing. Then, we don't panic, we play smart. A scream cut through the chaos. One of the other competitors, a 4-armed reptilian, had been too slow. The creature that caught him lifted him high before slamming him down so hard the ground cracked. A sickening crunch echoed. The reptilian warrior twitched once, then stopped moving. Layla swallowed. That could have been us. Elias's gaze was sharp. It won't be. Then a blur of movement. Something dark darting between the monsters. Too fast for the eye to track. Mercer. Where most of the warriors fought with power, Mercer fought with absence. He didn't confront the beast, he flowed through them. A clawed limb lashed out, he was already gone. A beast lunged, he was over it. He wasn't fighting the way the council expected. He wasn't engaging at all. He was hunting. Then with a flicker of motion he struck. A short blade, almost invisible in his grip, sliced through the air, and a monster stumbled back screaming, its underbelly slashed open. The crowd, watching from above, gasped. Elias smirked. Show off. Elias didn't. Waste time. Layla, get high ground, find an advantage. Layla nodded, scanning the battlefield. She spotted a floating platform, barely stable, shifting between gravitational fields. Perfect. On it. She sprinted, vaulting over a pile of shifting debris and scrambling up the unstable platform. Elias turned to Tariq. We need a plan. Tariq had already been studying the creatures. He adjusted his glasses. They're aggressive, but not mindless. They aren't just attacking, they're probing, finding weaknesses. Elias nodded. Then let's give them a weakness to find. Tariq frowned. What are you thinking? Elias smirked. A trap. Layla perched atop the floating platform, taking in everything, the movement patterns, the terrain shifts, the gravitational anomalies. She activated the small tactical device on her wrist, scanning. Okay, she muttered. If I was a suicidal idiot, what would I do? Then she spotted it. A gravity field fluctuation, a pocket where the gravitational pull flipped every few seconds. A grin spread across her face. She activated her comms. Cap, I've got something. West quadrant, 40 meters, there's a gravity inversion pocket. If we lead them into it, Elias caught on immediately. We turn the battlefield against them. Layla beamed. I knew you'd get it. Elias turned to Tariq. Make some noise. Draw them in. Tariq blinked. I don't have a weapon. Elias clapped a hand on his shoulder. Buddy, you've got the deadliest weapon. Tariq frowned. I do? Yeah. Elias grinned. You talk. Tariq sighed. Then stepping out from cover, he shouted at the nearest monster. Hey, you overgrown trash compactor! He flung a chunk of debris at it. It bounced harmlessly off its armored hide, but the beast whipped its head around, snarling. Tariq winced. Oh, that worked too well. The creature charged Elias and Tariq ran. Mercer, still moving like a phantom, appeared alongside them. This better be a good plan. Elias smirked. It's a great plan. They reached the edge of the gravitational inversion zone, and just as planned, the beasts were right behind them. Now, Ocampo, Elias roared. Layla hit a button on her wrist. The device she'd thrown earlier activated, sending out a pulse, momentarily locking the gravity field in an upward pull. The creatures charged straight in, and then, suddenly, they weren't on the ground anymore. A dozen chitinous war beasts were flung skyward, their momentum sending them into the air, where they flailed helplessly, unable to control their movement. From above, the audience roared in shock. Elias watched one particularly, massive beast tumble head over claws. He exhaled. Huh. Tariq put his hands on his knees, gasping. I can't believe that worked. Layla whooped from her perch. Humans, baby. Mercer grinned. Told you. The beasts that weren't caught in the gravity well stopped, in their tracks suddenly wary. Elias turned back toward the battlefield, rolling his shoulders. All right, round two. Against every expectation, the humans were still standing. In the arena, the remaining combatants had recalibrated. The beasts, momentarily disoriented, had begun regrouping. The Ultravax were pushing forward with raw brute force, leveraging their armored exoskeletons to overpower their foes. The Vorkari, ever precise, had begun coordinating their efforts, exploiting weaknesses with mathematical precision. The Zilthari focused their psionics, attempting to seize control of the creatures. Simple minds and the humans, they were doing what they did best, improvising. The ground beneath them shifted violently, sending a shockwave through the arena. The terrain was reconfiguring, adapting to the chaos. New structures rose from the earth, jagged towers, unstable plateaus, shifting labyrinthine corridors. Tariq swore. I hate this place. Layla, still positioned high above, scanned the changes. We've got a new problem. The arena is self-adjusting, it's learning. Mercer, his body still loose and fluid, smirked. So it's alive? Elias exhaled. Then we outthink it. A sudden roar erupted. One of the larger beasts, still airborne in the gravity trap, finally crashed back down. Its body slammed into the ground with earth-shaking force, but instead of dying, it rose, angrier. It locked eyes with Elias. Then it charged. The beast was faster than before. Its muscles coiled with unnatural strength, its movements sharper, more refined. It had learned. Elias rolled sideways just as a massive clawed limb slammed into the ground where he'd been standing, shattering the surface. The sheer force sent him tumbling, his ears ringing from the impact. Mercer was already moving. He flashed, forward, blade drawn, and struck. But the beast twisted mid-motion, avoiding the attack entirely. Mercer barely evaded the counterstrike, flipping backward. He landed in a crouch, eyes narrowed. "It's adapting to me." Elias pushed himself up. "Great." He cracked his neck. "Then we stop being predictable." Tariq sprinted past them, snatching up a chunk of metallic debris. He hurled it, aiming for the creature's eye ridges. The beast snapped its head sideways, dodging. Tariq grinned. "Gotcha." Elias didn't hesitate. He rushed in, not for a direct attack, but for something the beast wouldn't expect. He grabbed Mercer's shoulder and shoved him mid-motion. Mercer, caught off guard, was sent spinning sideways, and because the beast had anticipated his previous movements, it didn't react in time. Mercer landed on its back. "Don't waste it," Elias shouted. Mercer plunged his blade deep, slicing into the beast's neck joint. It screamed in agony, its massive body convulsing as dark, viscous blood splattered across the ground. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. Layla pumped a fist. "Humans, baby!" Back in the Celestial Hall, the murmurs had turned to heated discussion. "Their strategy is reckless." "No, it's brilliant. Did you see how they manipulated both the battlefield and their opponents?" "Impossible. Humans should not be able to compete at this level. Their biology is inferior. Their intelligence is sporadic." The Arbiter finally spoke, its voice reverberating through every mind present. "They are unpredictable." Silence fell, and in that silence an unspoken truth settled into the minds of the galactic elite. Humans were dangerous not because they were the strongest, the fastest, or the most intelligent. They were dangerous because they were impossible to calculate. The remaining combatants had taken notice. The Ultravax, who had always dismissed humanity as frail, were now wary. The Vorkari, who relied on probability, found themselves frustrated. The humans refused to follow any logical path. The Zilthari, who could bend the minds of lesser species, struggled against the sheer chaotic nature of human thought. And then the arena changed one last time. A deep, guttural sound echoed through the battlefield. The very air shimmered, the energy fields warping, and the terrain folded inward, forming a single massive Colosseum-like structure. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "I don't like that sound." Layla's voice came through comms, shaken. "Guys, look up." Elias did, and his stomach dropped. From the newly formed central gate, something huge emerged, a being unlike anything they had faced before, towering at least 20 meters, its body a fusion of organic muscle and synthetic plating, glowing veins of energy pulsing along its limbs. Its forearms flexed, razor-sharp claws gleaming. Its face, if it had one, was obscured behind a shifting mask of pure energy, radiating an aura of something Elias could only describe as awareness. The final trial had begun, and the real fight was about to start. Elias exhaled. Then he grinned. "All right, team." He cracked his knuckles. "Let's piss off some aliens." The colossal entity stepped into the battlefield, and the very air changed. Elias felt it first, a weight pressing on his bones, as if the creature's mere existence distorted the space around it. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant pulse, vibrating through the arena, sinking into his chest. It wasn't just noise, it was communication. Layla gasped from her perch. "It's analyzing us." Tariq adjusted his glasses, his face pale. "Not just analyzing, it's learning." The Thing, whatever it was, took another step and the ground trembled beneath its weight. The energy around it crackled, forming tendrils of power that lashed at the air like whips of pure force. Then, in a voice that wasn't a voice at all, it spoke. Humans, you should not have reached this far. Elias exhaled slowly. Well, we did. He cracked his neck. Now what? The entity raised one massive arm and a swirling sphere of energy formed in its palm. Then, with a flick of its wrist, it hurled the blast toward them. Move! Elias shouted. The team scattered as the energy sphere slammed into the ground, detonating in a blast of sheer force. The shockwave sent Elias tumbling backward, his ears ringing. Debris flew everywhere, shards of shattered rock slicing through, the air like daggers. Mercer barely dodged the explosion, flipping onto a ledge just as another arc of energy lashed out toward him. Layla, still perched on high ground, was already calculating angles. It's got ranged attacks, but it's not fully mobile. We need to force it to move. Tariq, gasping as he scrambled behind cover, snapped his fingers. Then we turn the arena against it. Elias nodded. How? Tariq scanned the battlefield, eyes flicking over every terrain shift, every floating platform, every unstable surface. His mind worked at blistering speed. Then he saw it. The grav inversion zone is still active, he said. If we bait it into that field while Layla triggers an energy destabilization, Elias grinned. We launch this bastard into orbit. Mercer darted between ruined structures, his movements liquid, his blade flashing in quick slashes to test the creature's reflexes. The entity barely reacted, its form shifting, adapting, anticipating. Tariq sprinted along the perimeter, shouting into comms. Layla, can you rig an energy pulse strong enough to override its stability? Layla's fingers flew over her device, recalibrating. I can, but I need time. Elias cracked his knuckles. Then we give you time. He turned to Mercer. Think you can make it mad? Mercer smirked. I live to annoy people. Then he moved. In a blur of motion, he darted toward the entity's blind spot, vanishing and reappearing in unpredictable patterns. His blade lashed out, slicing at the creature's armor, but not to damage, to irritate. The thing twitched, its energy surging in agitation. Then it turned, and for the first time, it actually reacted. It lunged, right toward the gravity inversion zone. Now, Layla! Tariq roared. Layla slammed her palm onto her device. A pulse of raw electromagnetic energy erupted through the battlefield, syncing with the grav inversion zone, and suddenly the laws of physics collapsed in on themselves. The entity faltered. Its movement staggered as the gravity field flipped, sending it lurching upward. Then, before it could compensate, Elias sprinted forward. With everything he had, he leapt and punched the glowing core at its chest. The force sent it spiraling, higher, past the threshold of the gravitational rupture, and then the entity shot skyward, spinning helplessly into the void. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, from the stands above, the Galactic Council erupted into chaos. The Arbiter hovered above the shocked alien dignitaries, its amorphous form flickering with thought. The Ultravax warlord growled, crossing his massive arms. They used the battlefield itself as a weapon. No honor. The Vorkari representative adjusted his glasses. No. They adapted. They broke patterns. They were... He hesitated. Unpredictable. The Zilthari, known for their superiority, in psionics pulsed a dark, frustrated hue. They cannot be calculated. They are chaos. The Arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber. They are victorious. A hush fell. Then the holographic scoreboard changed. Winner. Earth. In the arena below, Elias collapsed onto his back, breathing hard. Layla let out a wild cheer, pumping both fists. Tariq just lay flat, staring at the sky. I can't believe that worked, Mercer smirked, sheathing his blade. Told you. 2 hours later, the Galactic Council summit reconvened. Elias, now in an official Earth diplomatic uniform, stood at the podium with his team. The council chamber was uncomfortably quiet. The alien dignitaries, once dismissive, were now watching them carefully. The Arbiter's voice echoed. Humanity has earned a seat among the Galactic Council. Elias crossed his arms. Took you long enough. Layla grinned beside him. So what do we get? A medal? A spaceship? A free planet? The Ultravax warlord exhaled. You will be monitored. Tarek adjusted his glasses. You mean studied. The Vorkari representative sighed. We don't understand you. Elias smirked. Get used to it. Silence. Then the Arbiter pulsed. Very well. Welcome to the stars, humanity. As the team left the council chamber, Layla nudged Elias. So what now? Elias stretched. Now? He grinned. Now, we make them regret inviting us. And somewhere across the stars the entire galaxy shuddered, because humanity had arrived, and they were just getting started.